Go back to the main highlight of today. Most of the United Nations member states once again voted in favor of lifting the U.S. blockade against Cuba. And in this context, we invite Hakim Jihad, member of the Jacksonville Chapter of the U.S. Hands-Off Cuba Committee. Hello, Hakim. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
In the midst of an intense campaign of political and diplomatic pressure from the United States, today there has been a resounding victory for Cuba in the United Nations General Assembly. How would you interpret this victory in the face of the destabilizing actions performed by the United States?
Well, I think it's not only a victory for Cuba, but a victory for the entire world. It is the will of the world itself to end the blockade, the U.S.-imposed blockade of Cuba. But the U.S. continues to isolate itself from the international will of the people. This is just another example of that.
Practically all member states, with the exception of about a dozen, have spoken in favor of lifting the blockade. Could this result be interpreted as a sign of decline of U.S. influence in the multilateral arena?
Absolutely, and especially with the genocide happening in Palestine and in Gaza, we have seen the immorality of the United States and that they do not have any moral authority. Not only is their economic hegemony ending, but their moral authority is waning as well. And they are becoming quite naked in their authoritarianism.
Also, this decision comes in the aftermath of the devastating passage of Hurricane Melissa through eastern Cuba. On your opinion, what practical impact will the blockade have on the island's recovery? Also, why it is lifting the blockade a necessity for Cuba, especially in this context?
Absolutely. The blockade is going to impact recovery efforts in Cuba to a very intense degree, considering that, of course, materials will be needed to repair the damages caused by the storm. These materials and commodities are hard to acquire when Cuba is falsely placed on the state sponsor of terrorism list. And if we really compare this to a natural disaster that we had in the United States, I'm talking about Hurricane Katrina. Cuba offered to send hundreds of doctors to assist with that crisis. Of course, the president at the time, George W. Bush, declined, but it was absolutely in need, and especially the African community of the United States is very much in debt to Cuba.
And one last question, going back to this result of the United Nations General Assembly, on your opinion, what are the lessons that have been left by this victory in this space, international space, in the face of the power that has been played by the symbolic diplomacy in front of the political cohesion imposed by the United States?
Well, I think that the message from the world is clear, that Cuba is not alone, that the U.S. is becoming ever more isolated. The United States called itself a defender of democracy, yet the world's democratic will says end the blockade, and Washington continues to ignore it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Hakim, for your presence here and from the South and speaking to our audiences in the context of this symbolic victory for Cuba.
My pleasure.